Nigeria has the potential to be one of Sub-Saharan Africa's wealthiest countries. Every year, billions of cash flow into the state's coffers thanks to its oil and gas business. Nonetheless, the country faces significant obstacles. Extreme poverty, a deteriorating economy, a crumbling infrastructure, terrorism, and organized crime are all part of the population's daily lives. The current condition of affairs is partly due to chronic corruption, which has deprived the country and its people of the resources they require to prosper. Before we get into why Nigeria is very corrupt, we would like you to take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, as it enables us to reach a wider audience. Nigeria is Africa's most populated country, with more than 200 million people. It is also one of the world's greatest oil exporters, and for numerous years, the continent's largest economy. Despite this, the country suffers significant challenges. Nigeria now has the world's biggest number of people living in extreme poverty, with over 87 million people living on less than $1.9 per day. To make matters worse, the economy of the country is still struggling to recover from a severe downturn that began in 2014 and ended in 2016. Since the start of the economic crisis, the unemployment rate has grown every year, hitting a provisional record of 23.2% in the third quarter of 2018. The number of unreported cases, on the other hand, is almost certainly far larger. Furthermore, the birth rate in the country is roughly 5.2 children per woman, resulting in a fast population expansion in recent decades that is expected to continue. Other indicators that highlight Nigeria's difficult situation include the fact that roughly 60% of the population is not connected to the electricity grid, 13.5 million children do not attend school, and around 58,000 women die in childbirth each year, according to the World Health Organization's latest 2015 estimates. Power and education systems in the country are both underdeveloped, as is the healthcare system, and the country's crumbling roads are in serious need of repair. Furthermore, the country's security situation has deteriorated substantially during the last decade. For the past 10 years, the Islamic terror group Boko Haram and its breakaway group, Islamic State West Africa Province, have been destabilizing the northeast. In central Nigeria, ethnically mixed but mostly Christian farmers are clashing with Muslim Fulani herders, resulting in deaths. The security situation is being exacerbated by organized banditry in the northwest and the oil-rich south, as well as everyday kidnappings and robberies around the country. Thousands of people die every year as a result of the hostilities, which have forced over 2 million people to flee their homes. Nigeria's current position is largely the result of widespread corruption, which has denied the country critical development capital for decades. Corruption pervades society. It is systematically practiced by the governing class and manifests itself in a variety of forms, including embezzlement of public funds, clientelism, nepotism, fraud, bribery, and as a result, large-scale money laundering both at home and abroad. It affects everyone from high-ranking politicians and civil workers to security forces, entrepreneurs, and the lowest population of the country. So, it's no surprise that Nigeria has spent several years in the bottom quarter of Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index. The country was placed 144th out of 180 countries in 2018, alongside Comoros, Kenya, and Mauritania. There is no reliable data on the cost of corruption in Nigeria, but experts estimate that more than $400 billion in state funds were misappropriated from 1960 to the end of Sani Abacha's military dictatorship in 1999, and that another $182 billion left the country illegally between 2005 and 2014. Former South African President and panel chairman Thabo Mbeki stated at a meeting of the African Union High-Level Panel on Illicit Financial Flows in Abuja on October 2018 that the outflow of illegal funds from Africa had increased from $50 billion on 2015 to $80 billion per year, with Nigerian funds accounting for the lion's share. Multinational corporations, notably in the oil and gas sector, as well as banks and financial service providers, are all guilty of systematic fraud, bribery, and money laundering. A case that has been a source of concern for European courts for years, and as a result, has drawn international attention, and sheds light on the possible size of corrupt activities and networks. Royal Dutch Shell plc and the Italian business Eni SPA are being investigated in Milan, London, and soon in the Netherlands for alleged corruption in Nigeria. The two corporations are accused of paying $1 billion in bribes in 2011 with the knowledge of senior executives in order to obtain a lucrative offshore oil production license in the Gulf of Guinea. According to the allegations made by the Nigerian government in the indictments, such payments benefited not only Nigerian government officials, all the way up to then-President Goodluck Jonathan, but also senior executives from the two huge firms. J.P. Morgan Chase, a major U.S. bank, is also alleged of being heavily involved in the bribes illicit transaction. When Muhammadu Buhari was elected president in 2015, vast swaths of the populace hoped for a watershed moment in the country's long-running battle against pervasive corruption. Buhari, a former officer and Muslim from the north, had previously commanded the government in the aftermath of a military coup from 1983 to 1985. In the run-up to the elections, the media praised his purity. He promised not just to eliminate Boko Haram and develop the economy during his election campaign, but also to take immediate action against corruption. Buhari's victory was historic in that it allowed an opposition candidate to gain power through a democratic process for the first time since the country's independence. However, as Heinrich Bergstresser, a German specialist on Nigeria, correctly points out, the vast majority of voters were voting against President Jonathan and the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, rather than for the former junta leader. The PDP had dominated the country without interruption since its restoration to democracy in 1999, and in Jonathan's 5-year mandate, they brought it to the verge of collapse. Jonathan's oil minister and former OPEC president, Deezen Alison Madueke, was arrested in London on allegations of fraud in 2015, after Buhari was elected. In 2017, a Nigerian court ordered the seizure of $21 million from her bank accounts, as well as the forfeiture of 56 properties worth $9 million. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, Nigeria's national anti-corruption agency, had already seized land and real estate worth $44 million from the former minister, which was reportedly purchased with the proceeds of crime. Corruption is not a new phenomenon in Nigeria. It has always been part of the country's culture. Even if family members, the tribe, or members of the ethnic group benefit from an individual's ill-gotten money. According to U.S. anthropologist Daniel Jordan Smith, corruption is culturally sanctioned in Nigeria. Many academics, like Smith, feel that the country's pre-colonial period influenced its cultural acceptance of unethical activities. They refer to the historical practice of offering gifts to ruling elites in the hopes of receiving special treatment or favor. This transactional relationship is described by Smith as a patron-client relationship that continues to define the country's politics and economy along family, ethnic, and religious lines to this day. However, the first military dictators to administer the country following independence were notorious for their tremendous corruption. Richard Joseph, a political scientist from the United States, used the term prebendalism to describe this new type of corruption in the late 1980s. The term describes a widespread sense of entitlement and refers to the behavior of leading politicians and civil servants who believe they have the right to claim their share of government revenues and use them to benefit the people and groups closest to them. It refers to the medieval prebends in the Catholic Church in Europe. The fact that the state's modernization was left undone during British hegemony encouraged this behavior even more. As a result, shaky institutions and ineffective control mechanisms arose. However, it was only under General Ibrahim Babangida and General Sani Abacha, whose military governments followed each other almost effortlessly from 1985 and 1998, that corruption in Nigeria reached its apex. Clientelism, nepotism, and unethical self-enrichment at the expense of the state and its people characterized this time in Nigeria's history. When Babangida took office, he quickly pardoned a number of people who had been convicted of corruption by the previous Buhari administration. When Abacha came to power, he maintained Babangida's deregulation of the oil, telecommunications, and media industries. Abacha's devoted supporters were rewarded with licenses that allowed them to profit from both public and private businesses. From 1993 until his death in 1998, Abacha's rule was based on a harsh regime that allowed him to live a lavish lifestyle and freely exploit state-owned items and money. In just 5 years, he and his inner circle are reported to have unlawfully removed $3 to $5 billion from the nation. Nigeria reverted to democracy in 1999 after nearly 2 decades of authoritarianism. Olusegun Obasanjo, a former military who ruled the country as a junta leader in the 1970s and was imprisoned under Abacha, and the then newly formed PDP, won the first presidential and parliamentary elections. Atiku Abubakar, a former senior Nigerian customs official who made a fortune in the logistics and oil industries, was named vice president and ran against Buhari in the 2019 elections. Many corrupt practices were allowed to continue under Obasanjo and Abubakar, including the clientelism and nepotism that had been rampant in earlier years. However, corruption and the distribution of powerful positions and financial gain were now shrouded in democratic legitimacy. Nigeria might certainly fix its significant development difficulties in the near future, thanks to billions of dollars in government earnings from the oil and gas business. However, the country has been dominated by corrupt elites for decades, and the country has been starved of its capital. President Buhari promised to fight corruption after stunningly defeating his predecessor in the 2015 elections and being re-elected a second time in 2019. Even he, who is still described as having integrity by the world media, appears to have submitted to the corrupt system's procedures to stay in power. Clientelism, cronyism, weak institutions, and opaque procedures, all encouraged by the ruling elite, have resulted in a corrupt atmosphere. Slowly but steadily, the country is eroding. There are numerous suggestions for combating Nigeria's chronic corruption, including the creation of transparent procurement standards for public contracts and the establishment of an independent commission to verify compliance with the regulations. Closing legal loopholes and providing more staff for national anti-corruption authorities are among the other ideas. There have also been requests for the abolition of budgets with no accountability, such as security votes, for many years. Long-standing criticism has also been leveled at the insufficient number of people who are investigated or convicted of corruption. This figure would have to be considerably increased by authorities taking more deliberate action. Many of those charged and presumed guilty, on the other hand, appear to be above the law. This is also owing to the fact that authorities and courts are susceptible to bribes or just obey the political elite's orders. These organizations would also have to go through a cleansing procedure and set up internal controls. The majority of these recommendations are without a doubt well-founded in that they strive to develop and enhance institutions that can fight corruption throughout time. However, there is a basic issue. Nigeria needs political determination to act completely, not selectively, against corruption within its own ranks, including the government, legislatures, security service, and economy. Even then, people's opinions toward corruption, which are frequently culturally embedded, would take a long time to change. There appears to be little hope that things will improve in the near future. The political elite that dominates the country today, and will almost certainly govern it tomorrow, is the same political class that governed the country yesterday. Its lengthy history of corruption has ingrained it in society, and we can't expect it to be interested in making a clean break with the past. Politics is far too lucrative in a society where the average citizen has no chance of prospering. Africa is looking at Nigeria to lead change in her politics, economy, and development in other sectors. Nigeria and Nigerians must stand up against corruption and corrupt leaders. If you enjoyed watching this video, please remember to like it and hit the subscribe button so you can become a member of our community of touristers here on the New Tourist channel. Also, don't forget to let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and see you in another video.